Otherwise the popes could not be the popes.
So we go to...
And so they had to be destroyed.
So we go to the crucifixion.
Yeah. So the crucifixion. So was Jesus crucified? Well, possibly. But I don't think he was crucified in AD 30, because all of these events that we've been talking about, the links with Josephus, the being persecuted within Galilee and so on, all of that happened in about AD 60, 65.
And when would Mary have come into the picture? Had he married her and had children with her?
Well, they could have married and had children at any time. So,
okay.
So we're probably talking something around AD 20, 25, 30 or something for their particular marriage. So they could have had old children by this time.
Right.
So all of these events we've been talking about didn't occur back in AD 30. All of these events happened in about AD 65. So Jesus would have been much older at this point. He would have been around 60 years old, and Josephus would have been much younger, around 30. So the crucifixion, if it happened, did not happen in AD 30. But of course, as we go down the years and come through AD 65, AD 70, of course, then we enter the most traumatic era in Judaic history. And this was the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem. So there was a civil war going on. And this is part of the reason for the story about the Mount of Olives and why there would have been 30,000 soldiers on the Mount of Olives, going to take Jerusalem by storm, etc. Why was that happening? Well, there was a civil war going on. And what I'm saying, of course, is that Jesus was one of those elements within that civil war. And this is a real civil war from history, of course. But this civil war, of course, started to involve the Romans, because effectively this was supposed to be Roman territory. And the last thing the Romans wanted was this major dispute going on their eastern borders, because they were afraid of Persia, of course. And so Vespasian, the army commander, was sent to restore order in the area, of course. And so he went all around Galilee and destroyed all the cities there, etc., and regained control of Galilee. And then, of course, they marched on Jerusalem itself. And so then we have this major event, the Siege of Jerusalem. And, of course, at the end of the Siege of Jerusalem, of course, the Jews lose, of course. Jerusalem is destroyed. The people are either killed during this assault, or they're taken off as slaves, or scattered, yes, on a huge exodus again. So all of the Jewish population are thrown out of Israel, and hence all this problem we have today, of course, with the Zionists wanting to go back into Israel. All of this occurred because the Roman army dispersed all of the Jews out of Israel. When he entered Jerusalem, there were 3 of his previous acquaintances. Remember, now he's on the wrong side, he's on the Roman side, so these acquaintances would have been the rebels in Jerusalem. And so he saw 3 acquaintances on crosses being crucified in the remains of Jerusalem. And he asked a special favour for them to be taken down. And they were taken down. And only one survived. So here we have a story about 3 people being on a cross, who were associates or previous friends of Josephus. Only one of them survives. And the person who takes them down from the cross, of course, was called Joseph. And here I think we probably see a link into biblical history, because of course the person who took Jesus down from the cross was called Joseph of Arimathea. And it seems to be an incredibly similar story that I think it is most probably linked. But of course we're just looking at a different era. This didn't happen in AD 30 or 33. This business with Jesus' resurrection in AD 30-33 was a simple Masonic third-degree raising.
Third degree, yeah.
It's a third-degree raising.
Yeah.
Same as any Mason would go through today, where they symbolically die and they are raised from the dead.
Right.
So yes, these events were not from that era. These were from AD 70, destruction of Jerusalem. A major event which is strangely absent from the New Testament. Very strangely absent. Why is it missing? This was the most upsetting event in the whole of Judaic history, and yet it's not there. Why? Well, I think it's been sort of slipped in a slightly different era. And if you want to look at the true story of the New Testament, you have to go to the Jewish War, which was a book written by Josephus. And it follows the same sort of chronology, the same people, the same events. But it's just taken from a secular viewpoint instead of a religious viewpoint. And these two books were written. One was a religious book of this era and events, and one was a secular one. One was written for his new church, the Church of Saul, and the other was written for the Romans, because the Romans wanted a history of this era. And so he wrote two books. One was secular, one was religious. And they went to different people.
And so the one of the three that survived may
May have been.
Jesus.
But remember, of course, this Jesus in this era would have been 65 years old, of course. He already had children.
He already had his family.
We don't need him to survive
Right.
in order to maintain the bloodline. We know that he had children. At least we can be as fairly sure as we can.
Right.
But there's an interesting confrontation between Saul and someone called Jesus on his travels. And he has this violent argument with this guy and ends up blinding him. Why did he have an argument with this guy? Why was he so upset? Well, his name was Jesus, of course. And the last thing Saul wanted on his travels around the Mediterranean was someone called Jesus, a son of Jesus, who was called Ben Jesus, saying that what you're saying is rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
And this is effectively what this guy was saying. Don't believe it. You know, what Saul is telling you is rubbish. It didn't happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he had an argument with this particular person.
Mm-hmm.
And this person was called Ben Jesus, the son of Jesus.
Son of Jesus.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that he did have sons and daughters. And so some of them, of course, would have escaped,
Mm-hmm.
either prior to the destruction of Jerusalem or after. And they would have gone off maybe to the south of France. And hence we have all these stories of them like
Right.
in the south of France.
Right. Wow, what a journey.
Yes, what a
So
journey.
I think we're going to wrap it up there. And again, I will highly encourage any of you viewing this to purchase a copy of the books and dig in. It's fascinating research. And certainly we're in a time where, in my opinion,